And the Rendezvous Ballroom would literally bounce, and the Surfers Stomp came out of that.
So then you're playing, I don't remember which venue we were playing, but this guy shows up who was kind of integral to rock and roll and walks up and you let him plug in. So give us that one.
So we're playing at the Hollywood Palladium, another one of those great venues up near Sunset and Vine. And the Beatles were on VJ Records. They hadn't been signed to Capitol. Capitol didn't think they would be a successful band. So it's a
Got
VJ.
that wrong.
VJ is the largest black-owned record label in the United States at the time. You can imagine the Beatles that were a black act. But it was the Teenage Fair and the KHJ Music Festival, and they booked a bunch of artists. And one of the artists they booked was Chuck Berry, who was newly out of prison. And people played his songs, but people had pretty much forgotten who he was in the era of Top 40. So he's backstage without a band and just his guitar, and he needs a band, and there's nobody back there but us, and he needs a bass player. And he wanted one, but there was no other bass players. And I said, well, I'm not very good. Are the songs hard? And he said, are you okay? Glenn, you all right?
Sorry, sign language to bring up your iced tea so that you can wet your whistle if need be.
No,
I'm going to
fine.
put it right here.
So
Keep talking.
he said, the songs aren't hard. No, they're not hard. And because I'm not very good, I said, will you tell me what key they're in before you start each one? Because I'm a new bass player. Oh, I'll do that. And there was a girl from a newspaper interviewing him and said, how do you feel about the Beatles and the Rolling Stones doing your songs? And he said, oh, I don't know who those English boys are, but I sure am glad they're doing my music. That's how early it was. Chuck Berry didn't know who the Beatles or the Rolling Stones were then. So we went out on the stage, and Chuck took off. Johnny Be Good and Sweet Little 16 and Roll Over Beethoven. Great songs. He never turned around and tell me what key they were in, and he never had to because the songs were just so great. I'm just going along for the ride. And I've told this story a bunch of times, and finally a few years ago somebody said, oh, I've got pictures of you and Chuck Berry at the Hollywood Palladium, but they're not very good. And I said, what's the matter with them? He says, oh, it's just you and Chuck. I said, oh, I want to see those. So I had to buy his $35 book, and there they are. There's us and Chuck Berry at the Hollywood Palladium. So I found a photographer, Chuck Boyd, who did Tiger Beat and Teen Beat and Carol A. Beat, all those magazines. So as an artist playing, you don't know who's taking your picture, but these things surface. So I got them and restored some of them, and they're some of the best shots. Well, anyway, so our guitar players were afraid that Chuck Berry would blow up their amp. So Leo Fender, who was our friend, had a booth upstairs in the Palladium balcony. So they went in and borrowed a Fender Showman Amp for Chuck. Brought it down to the stage, set it on the side of the riser for him to plug into. He plugged his guitar in there, strummed his guitar and played a few licks, and he turned around and blew it a kiss because he'd never heard his guitar sound the way it did through a Fender Showman Amp. And from that job until he passed away, his contract writer didn't say I need colored jelly beans or only the green M&Ms. It said the promoter must provide a Fender Showman Amp. And so there it is, and there's pictures of him. People see the picture sometimes and say, who's the black guy in the surf band? Because there's one point in one of the songs we're playing together, and he was looking, as he said, it's in a book, Surf Beat, The Forgotten Generation, is the legend of when Chuck Berry was lost in a song, the childhood grin on his face, and then this look of fear came upon his face, and he turned around to Richard and Ed, the drummer and the guitar player, Ed and Richard, and said, what song are we playing? Because he was so into it, he'd forgotten.
Entered Nirvana.